Figurative language refers to the colour we use to amplify our writing. It takes an ordinary statement and dresses it up in an evocative frock. It gently alludes to something without directly stating it. Figurative language is a way to engage your readers, ushering them through your writing with a more creative tone. There are many types of figurative language, but this video we're going to talk through a number of them. Similes are the first one that we're going to discuss. A simile is a figure of speech involving the comparison of one thing with another thing of a different kind. For instance, the clouds were like candy floss. He was as tall as the Empire State Building. These are examples of you comparing something to something else. So for instance, clouds and then comparing it to candy floss by using the word like. You can also use the words as you can see in the second example. A metaphor is a figure of speech in which a word or phrase is applied to an object or action to which it is not literally applicable. A metaphor is basically you saying that something is something else. The snow is a white blanket, or life is a roller coaster. Personification is another example of figurative language. Personification gives human characteristics to inanimate objects, animals, or ideas. Opportunity knocked at his door. Opportunity is an abstract noun and therefore cannot physically knock, so this is an example of personification. The sun greeted me this morning. Again, another example of giving a human characteristic to an inanimate object. Hyperbole. Hyperbole is an outrageous exaggeration that emphasizes a point. It tends toward the ridiculous or the funny. Hyperbole adds colour and depth to a character and therefore is another example of figurative language. You snore louder than a freight train. This is an outrageous exaggeration. I had to walk 50 miles to school in the snow, uphill, in bare feet. This again is an outrageous exaggeration that emphasises a point. Symbolism. Symbolism occurs when a word has its own meaning, but is used to represent something entirely different. For instance, people use the American flag or perhaps the British flag to represent patriotism and a love for one's country. You might also think of using owls when representing wisdom. Alliteration is a sound device. It's the repetition of the first consonant sounds in several words. We're up wide-eyed and wondering while we wait for others to awaken. This is the repeated W sound throughout this sentence. Betty bought butter, but the butter was bitter, so Betty bought better butter to make the bitter butter better. This is an example of alliteration using the letter B. We often get tongue twisters from alliteration. Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is another sound device, but instead of using repeated sounds, this time we're using words that sound like their meaning, or words that mimic sounds. These add a level of fun and reality to the writing, perhaps making the reader feel like they're there. The burning wood hissed and crackled. Here, the words hissed and crackled sound like what they're describing. Sounds of nature are all around us. Listen for the croak, caw, buzz, whir, swish, hum, quack, meow, oink, and tweet. All of these are examples of onomatopoeia. An idiom is an expression used by a particular group of people with a meaning that is only known through common use. For instance, kick the bucket refers to somebody dying. A cliché is a phrase that is often repeated and has become kind of meaningless. Here is an example. Walk a mile in my shoes. This cliché has become a little bit meaningless because it is so overused. Assonance is when you repeat a vowel sound in a phrase. True, I do like Sue. Throughout this you can hear that the vowel sound is repeated, that oo sound. Metonymy is a figure of speech where one thing is replaced with a word that is closely associated. with it. So, for instance, instead of referring to the United States government, you might just refer to Washington. Obviously, Washington is the place where the United States government is based, so this word is closely associated with it, but it's not the actual thing. Overall, there are many, many types of figurative language. Figurative language covers a wide range of literary devices and techniques, and here's a few more that you might want to have a look into.